A city in New Jersey decided that they wanted to do a cash grab against landlords by charging a $100 per unit registration fee annually. Now, 44 apartment owners are suing that city. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting story for you today, and it's coming out of the state of New Jersey, okay? So obviously New Jersey is not a place where they are friendly to landlords, okay? I gotta emphasize this every time I make a video because some people don't seem to understand that there are certain places where you can be a landlord and be left alone. There's other places where if you're a landlord, they are constantly trying to pass new laws, rules, and regulations that hurt you specifically, okay? They already have rent control in places like New Jersey, and they have extremely strong eviction protections depending on what city or municipality you're working in. But the thing that this city here in particular did was they decided they wanted to put a registration fee out for rental units, and it's $100 per unit every year. Now, that's a joke, okay? That's an absolute joke. And you know what? The cost of that is so high that it will impact the cost for renters. So, you know what my issue is when they want to pass these new laws, rules, regulations that say, hey, you have to pay us this fee that will, by the way, accomplish absolutely nothing. Okay, it will accomplish absolutely nothing. And then you want to, on top of that, throw a rent cap over there so that you can't cut or increase your rents to cover the cost of this new regulation that they just passed. Now, that is just, it's wrong. It's cruel and it's wrong, okay? And it will drive landlords out of business. It will cause those landlords who are not forced to cap their rents. It will cause them to increase their rents. And you know what? It doesn't benefit landlords or the tenants. So why are we passing these laws? It's a feel-good measure. It's a feel-good measure by a bunch of morons who have no clue how the business works. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. So what do you think of a mandatory landlord registration that annually a landlord has to pay $100 per unit? Okay, I think it's idiotic. I think it's absolutely idiotic. And for large apartment buildings, it can cost them in the tens of thousands of dollars every single year on top of their already ongoing expenses. So I see why they are suing the city. I see why they are trying to fight against this sort of thing. Do I think they will win? Absolutely not. There's no chance. Okay, they have no chance. But I thought I would bring this issue to light anyway because this sort of proposal is even happening in places like where I live, okay, like in Omaha, like here in the Midwest, right? They think that, oh, if we charge the landlord this fee, then, you know, we can do X, Y, Z. And my problem, and, you know, the registration really goes back to registration, licensing, and inspections, okay? That's what they're really trying to do. And they think that there's so many units that are dilapidated and in bad shape around here that we need to make sure to keep those bad landlords in check because all, you know, and the truth of the matter is that less than 1%, that's how many bad units you have out there. The majority of landlords are trying to make money. We're trying to make money. And there is no way we can make money if we keep our units in bad shape. No way. It's absolutely impossible. Nobody will want to rent from us. And we will end up costing ourselves more money by deferring maintenance. Now, there is an exception to that, right? And that comes down to those people who are unable to increase their rents to cover the cost of the repairs and maintenance, right? Specifically people under rent control policies, right? But that's a different issue. And anyway, let me get into this article and we can talk about that. This article is coming from patch.com, and it says, apartment landlords sue Edison over new housing ordinance. Let's get into it. Landlords of around 8,216 apartment units in Edison have sued the township over a new housing ordinance. According to the lawsuit, the township imposed an unreasonable annual licensing and registration fee of $100 per unit, which could collectively cost them $821,600 a year. Around 44 apartment buildings are being represented in the lawsuit filed in the Middlesex County Superior Court. The owners are calling for the ordinance to be thrown out. Among the plaintiffs in the lawsuit are Durham Woods, which has 1,000 apartments, Rivendell and Edison, which has 455, Millbrook Village, which has 557, and Edison Woods, which has 470 units. So just imagine, you do the math on that, right? It's $100 per unit. You've got 1,000 units, right? So, 10 units would be $1,000. 100 units would be $10,000. So you're spending $100,000 a year on licensing and registration when you don't have any problem. Like you're keeping your place well maintained. Your tenants are doing well. You don't have these big major issues that they supposedly passed these laws for. You're not one of the slumlords, but here you got to pay $100,000 a year out of pocket, just like that, okay? And regardless of what some people say, it is not easy for these large landlords to come up with huge sums of money like that, okay? When it affects the bottom line, that means that the only way that we can cover these costs is by raising the rent. So that is probably what's going to happen. Okay, we're going to see a lot of landlords raising rent on tenants. Tenants will, oh, where did our affordable housing go? And then these politicians will start making promises of rent caps if they haven't already. Okay. Edison adopted the ordinance on April 25th that mandates the disclosure of certain financial information about the landlord and lease terms, which the plaintiffs say are wholly irrelevant to the registration of apartment units. According to the lawsuit, landlords are subject to violations and penalties for actions taken unilaterally by a tenant, including over-occupancy of an apartment, even when the landlord does not know of the over-occupancy. So what it sounds like is they put a certain a certain amount. There's only a certain amount of people who are able to live in an apartment unit, right? And when a tenant moves people in there unknowingly to the landlord, well, the landlord can be penalized, not the tenant, not the person who actually committed the action. You signed the lease to a single mom, and she had 2 kids living in there. You come back and you've got 3 adults in there. You got 6 kids living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and you're like, wait a second here. These people aren't even on the lease, and the city's like, hey, here's a fine, landlord. You should have done something about this. No. See, and that's my problem, right? They always come after landlords because they see us as the people who have the money. And they don't go after the tenants because they see them as broke and they don't have any money, which honest truth is the case many, many times, okay? So it's wholly unfair, though, for landlords to have to basically fund city services, and that's what this really comes down to. What do you think that money is going to? It's going to be to pay the payroll of people who are running around doing inspections, okay? Give me a break. We're now, landlords are basically a job service for bureaucrats. Give me a break. Identifying whether children reside in a rental unit and the number of children poses a significant concern, the landlords argued. The lawsuit also claims that the ordinance only requires inspections if there is a reported issue, and states that the purpose of inspections is to determine with the township's zoning and property maintenance ordinances, which have their own enforcement mechanisms. The ordinance is arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable and should be declared null, void, and of no effect, the landlords said in their ordinance. Calling the lawsuit frivolous, Alan C. Zhang, the attorney representing Edison, said, Township of Edison demands judgment dismissing plaintiff's complaint with prejudice and awarding fees, costs, and any other relief deemed equitable and just by the court. So, of course, the town wants the lawsuit dismissed. They don't want to have to deal with this nonsense, but landlords have to fight. They have to fight because, you know what, they're getting nickel and dime to death. And this is part of the reason why I say don't invest in a place like New Jersey. Don't invest in a place like New York. Don't invest in a place where you're not treated with respect. Like, you know what, we're going to allow you to set your own prices. We're going to allow you to operate in the manner in which you choose. That is the way you operate a business. Not, hey, the government says who you can rent to, how much you can charge for rent, whether or not they can be evicted, And you got to jump through all these thousands of hoops. You know what that does? That makes it so that small players such as myself can't even get started because the cost is too high and it's too difficult to deal with the government. So you end up with a lot of large players and no small players in the business. And that is terrible, okay? And so if you're interested in this article, I'll put a link to this article in the description down below, and let me know what you think in the comments section.